Hey everyone. So for my publishing and performance project, I chose to do focus on Threadsuns Press. Threadsuns is a teaching press funded by High Point University. It began early last year, so 2020. Um, the editor and publisher, Michael Flatt, is a poet in his own right, and he's earned a lot of positive reviews. He also publishes a press called Low Frequency, which really focuses only on poetry, but experimental poetry, unbound collections, poetry that is really accompanied by photos or images. Like I said, kind of trying to shift what we conceptually understand as poetry. But to an introduction to Flatt's work for the Poetry Society of America, J. Michael Martinez states that there's courage to err and forgive. There's courage to inhabit the flesh, to inhabit the body, not as a pose or in a false sensuality, but in the uneven integrity that is our human event. The poetry of Michael Flatt finds its beauty in those uneven, flawed edges we refuse. The limits of our human experience where we exhibit our own failures, those margins of the crafted poem where we cut because they expose the vulnerability of both line and self. So that kind of speaks to a little bit about what Flatt wants to accomplish. Like some small presses are kind of regionally specific and really publish, albeit very inclusive and properly representing the region itself, is kind of situated around a specific region. Threadsuns kind of has a target style that they want to publish, which is something related to the human experience. Threadsuns itself is the title of a poem written by Paul Celan, published in the 1967 collection Breath Turn. Before Pierre Joris's translation of that poem reads, Threadsuns, above the gray black wastes, a tree, high thought, grasps the light tone. There are still songs to sing beyond mankind. Michael Flatt obviously works for HPU, but he's also an assistant professor of English there, does a lot of creative writing classes and history of the novel, history of poetry, things like that. What they do, so like I said, they just started last year, so they only have 2 books available for purchase right now. The first being Brian Henry's Permanent State. Flatt via Poets and Writers, which is a segment from the small press distribution, states that our inclinations lean toward experimental work that maintains a connection to human experience. So I think that's pretty much cut and dry about what they're looking for. It doesn't have to be, submissions don't have to come from any sort of area, or any sort of background. There's just a style and a tone that they're looking for. They said they mainly wish to publish poetry, but it's kind of hard to be super restrictive when you've only been around for 2 years and a pandemic hit and created a major obstacle. So they're really open to submissions across the board, prose and translations and poetry. Students do a lot of the groundwork. As I said, it's a teaching press. So it's edited by Flatt and a couple other recent graduates, but a lot of the groundwork of the editing and proofreading and I think they probably would use InDesign. A lot of that stuff's going to be done by students. It says on their About Us page that students take part in at least some level of each stage of publication process, whether it be acquisitions or print and digital editing, production, or marketing and promoting the book. The first publication said is Brian Henry's Permanent State. Flatt, speaking on Permanent State, says this: Permanent State, while not written during the pandemic, really speaks to the dynamics of power and powerlessness that one feels right now. The press itself is like that for me. I'm doing something, which is great, but also you have to question what it actually does in the world. How can you make it more effective, more significant? And for me, that's where the teaching comes in. If I can pass on this practice to others, teach them how to create community through publishing, then the project has some meaningful agency. So there's 2 levels that I think really hit that quote. Obviously, what's here on the bottom, this little bottom bullet here, during the month of October last year, Threadsuns donated 50% of all sales of permanent state to Black Voters Matter Capacity Building Institute, which is a organization that tries to get resources and information out to Black voters to try to get the turnout increased in Black voters during elections. I mean, it's whether it be knowing where to register to vote, knowing where their polls are, information on candidates and what districts are representing who, and anything that they need. So, but I think that speaks a lot to the early success of Threadsuns, that not only do they have the mindset to do something like this, but to say that they're doing okay in their first year and their first publication to donate half of a month of sales to an organization. I think it's obviously they're starting a precedent, and as they grow and increase in success and increase in sales, it's only going to continue in that direction. So yeah, it's what they're doing now, however, is promoting and marketing their second book, which is a translation by Lindsay Turner of Ryoko Sakaguchi's The Present Voice. Threadsuns describes this as a collection of meditations on the voice, the body, media, mortality, and loss. And this book has done absolutely phenomenal for a small press book, not only for a small press book, but for a book published by a press that's only been around for 2 years. Small press distribution listed The Present Voice at number 8 on their list for nonfiction bestsellers from August to October of this year. So it's gained a lot of attention, a lot of positive reviews, a lot of sales. It's just done absolutely phenomenal. There's small press distribution represents and reflects countless small presses and small press books. So to have something sitting in the top 8 from a press that's only been around for less than 2 years is fantastic. And I think that's a credit to Flat's efforts and the student workers who are doing so much great work and finding ways to get their foot in the door and get their name out there. They have a really active Twitter feed. They have an active Instagram. They appear at local literary festivals like Bookmarks in Winston-Salem or Greensboro Bound, which is another one that just happened, I think. So they're working their butts off to get this thing up and going and get to their total goal. They want to put out 3 books a year. So obviously, as proud and accomplished as they might feel of getting 1 book in each year because of the pandemic and how many businesses just had to go under, and being able to start something during the pandemic and keep it going and see some traction, see some growth. 2021 is fantastic, but it's only a third of what they want to do. They want to put out 3 books a year, and that might change once they get to 3 books a year. Their submission guidelines might change. They might lean a little bit more towards poetry because that's kind of what Flat really wants to do. But at the end of the day, if they find more success in books like The Present Voice, which is a translation, they might kind of lean towards prose and just kind of keep the door open for everything. But again, they've done a fantastic job getting up and going. Highly recommend checking them out. I met Michael Flat. He's an amazing person. He's great, very friendly. They do fantastic work. They'll get back in touch with you very quickly. They accept submissions year round. I think, like I said, there's not a certain background they're looking for. They're all inclusive. They just are looking for work that is somehow connected to the human experience, whether that be the body, feelings, or spirituality, whatever we define as a component of the human experience. That's what they're looking for. So, like I said, I think they're mainly going to publish full collections or books, but so it's going to be longer pieces, longer works. But I would imagine they have a long-reaching goal towards like anthologies and like collection, like multi-author collection and stuff right now. But the first 2 have obviously single author books. So that's what they're looking for. That's what they're able to publish right now. But check them out. Threadsuns Press is really up and coming, local small press, and only good things I envision only good things for them in the future and years to come. Thanks for your time. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.